Let's talk some Bills right now. Ken Dorsey fired yesterday. What was your initial take on Dorsey getting fired?
It's tough not to see that as a move that smacks of desperation to an extent. You know, I can't remember. Somebody was making the point of there's no way. It was Aaron Rodgers actually on Pat McAfee show. He's like, if they win that game, which remember came down to a 12th guy being on the field, right?
Yes.
If they win that game, i.e. 11 people line up on defense instead of 12 for that field goal kick, there's no way they fire him. Even with the exact same offensive performance, if they win the game, Ken Dorsey still has a job today.
Clearly that had been brewing though, right?
Of course.
Is this just Sean McDermott?
But the loss makes it happen. So it's just this crazy world of, things that aren't in your control determining outcomes. Like a 12th guy on special teams is responsible for whether or not Ken Dorsey is in the job of offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills on Wednesday, November the 15th. That's insane. Like from just a process standpoint, that is absolutely ludicrous.
I agree. How do we reconcile? I know there's been a lot of discourse around this. All of the advanced metrics, all of the traditional metrics, from starting with points scored. Forget advanced, like points scored. The Bills score points on that side of the ball. But EPA and success rate and all these things are good for the Bills. But they've also had duds like scoring 14 points against the Giants in a win.
And it's visibly off.
Yes, something is off. Like there's a lack of rhythm.
Yeah.
There's a lack of consistency. Because like even in the Bengals game a couple weeks ago, it was inconsistent, and then it's like 4 plays they drive down the field. There's a lot of those Bills-like drives where Josh Allen just hits 2 big-time throws, flips the field, they score a touchdown in 4 or 5 plays. It's like, oh, there's the Bills. Like they always kind of have that somewhere deep down, but there's no flow and consistency.
And this is why,
offense.
Like everything, the answer is not one extreme or the other. This is why there's some nuance to this, because it's not like you can look at the current Bills offense and say everything is perfect, despite those underlying metrics which all say the offense is really good. There's a lot of talent on that offense. It's probably going to look quite good in any numbers across the board. So it's not like you can look at it and say there is no problem whatsoever. They're simply unlucky, because the biggest problem is turnovers, right? Just they lead the league, right, in turnovers, or they're tied for the most in turnovers. Josh Allen leads the league in interceptions. The fundamental problem with the Bills offense right now is they are turning the ball over way too much. And in this year, of all years, that might be a bigger problem than it's been in previous seasons, because offense is
second.
Okay, because offense is down, scoring is down, explosive plays are down. These are all ways to offset turnovers. So being more turnover prone this year might be a bigger issue than it would have been a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever. But that's the main problem. But that doesn't mean it's the only problem. So I'm not saying you look at this and you say they've simply been unlucky with turnovers. That's probably not going to last long term, so the move doesn't make any sense at all. There is something wrong with the Bills' offense, and I think there's some merit to the idea that they've become too predictable, and there are some issues schematically as well. But if it wasn't for the turnovers, would you be looking at those problems and saying we need to fire this guy immediately? No. And the other thing is, there are times where, something is off on offense generally, but one side of the ball, something's off. We think there's a schematic problem in here, and a head coach will step in and take over that side, like, resume play calling duties, that kind of thing, right? That's not what's happening here. It's not even like if Brian Daboll was the head coach and he's like, all right, this has gone too far. I'm going to step in and fix it, right? I'm going to steady the ship because I know more. I'm better than you at this. I'm going to resume control over that side of the ball. This is a defensive head coach stepping in and saying, we need to change, and I'm not resuming responsibility for it. I'm giving it to somebody else, and you just have to leave. It's a big change for something that I think the single biggest underlying problem is, I don't want to say it's luck-driven, but they have been disproportionately unlucky when it comes to turnovers this year. And even though Josh Allen leads the league in turnovers since he's come into the league, since the start of 2021, whatever time period you want to put on it, I still don't think the degree to which they have been turnover prone this year is a permanent problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I want to talk about the turnovers. Well, really quick, when you say that the head coach stepped in and made calls about the offense, are you talking coming into this season, or are you talking about the move to move on from Dorsey?
I'm saying there is precedent for saying that one side of the ball is struggling, so the head coach is going to make a change mid-season. But generally, when that happens, it's like the side of the ball the head coach is from stepping in to sort of take back control.
Right.
I have left the offense to an offensive coordinator that I thought would do a good job. It's not working, so I'm going to step in and fix it. Me. Like, I am going to take over the offense again. Like, if Kyle Shanahan had a designated offensive coordinator and he'd ceded responsibility to that guy, and suddenly the 49ers offense was, not firing the way it is, Shanahan would step back in and say, thanks for the work. You can stay as offensive coordinator, but I'm in charge again, right? That would make sense. Like, if the Buffalo defense, which it is, was floundering this season, and Daboll stepped in and said, I'm going to do all the play calls now, right? I'm going to run the defense again. That would make some sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, McDermott. That would make some sense, but this is like different side of the ball, and he's turning it over to the QB coach.
McDermott took over on defense anyway.
Right.
But I get what you're saying. I understand
That's
your
the precedent
yes.
that makes sense. This is much more unprecedented in terms of a good team, despite the record, performing well through a lot of offensive metrics, completely changing the guy in charge.
Here's what I'm curious about coming into this year. How many times over the last 2 years have we said the Bills need more balance, not in terms of run pass, but in terms of Josh Allen plays and non-Josh Allen plays? How many times have we said they don't need to run the ball 35 times a game, but a few of those 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3s, they should be able to run the ball and pick those up without running QB sweep every single time, having Josh Allen get hit? How many times have we said it'd be nice to have a little less pressure on Josh Allen and a little more reliance on everyone else? And then in the big games, it's okay. Let Josh Allen take over. Save your QB sweeps for the Chiefs game and the Bengals game and the games in the playoffs and the whole deal. How much of this offseason do you think that was part of the plan? We're going to get Dalton Kincaid. We'll have 2 tight ends with him and Dawson Knox. We'll spread the ball around a little bit more. We'll give James Cook more of the workload as a runner. How much of that? And then when you look at the underlying metrics just from Allen, and I know the league is trending this way, but Allen's lowest average depth of target by a mile and a yard and a half shorter than it was last year, right? In addition to, he doesn't have the same scrambling prowess or running prowess that he had last year. He was a 90-plus PFF runner the last couple of years. Scrambles, design runs. This year he's down at 70. I know the fumble the other night killed that as well. So you're not getting superhuman Josh Allen. You're getting this more controlled offense. And to your previous point, the turnovers are still up. So you've got this more conservative Bills offense and the turnovers are still up. And why are they up? Literally because of bad luck right now. And I know it's tough to say this after the Monday night game. There were 2 games where Allen had multiple turnovers, and there was not bad luck. One of those games was Monday night, where he was bad as far as those plays, right? He dropped the fumble, dropped a handoff, got away with a turnover along the sideline, terrible interception, and 1 unlucky interception. And then week 1 against the Jets, those were all on him, right? Literally blew the game against the Jets. We said that after that week. And then the other night, you could put a lot of blame on Allen. Forget the 12th man thing for a minute, right? You put a lot of blame on Allen. So how much of this is, and look, the turnover thing doesn't matter as much if you're creating big plays.
Yeah.
Right? So now they've neutered the offense this year, and they're still turning it over. For whatever reason, they're still turning it over. James Cook is fumbling, and Allen's dropping handoffs, and there's drop passes being picked off. But I just want to say, to me, that's the totality of the situation. They tried to be a little more conservative on offense, so they purposely cut down on some of the big plays, and the league's trending that way, and you're still turning it over, so it felt like something needed to change.
So I also wonder how much this current trend of defenses forcing quarterbacks to be more conservative, to be more patient, to be more to take away those big plays. Like, how much of this is defenses forcing that to happen? How much does that disproportionately affect a quarterback like Josh Allen, right? Who has always been quite turnover prone relative to other guys. Like, the fact that he leads the league in turnovers since whenever, is a relevant data point, right? It doesn't mean he's the most turnover-prone quarterback in the history of the world. There's an extent to which he's just playing all the time, right? He's going to, like, Mahomes.
I want to address that, but you finish your point, but I want to address that, yes.
Since 2021, Mahomes is fourth on the list, right? I think fourth, maybe third.
Yeah.
Like, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. A lot of people say he's in a tier by himself. He's the fourth most turnover-prone quarterback in the NFL since the start of 2021 because he's played all the time. There's an extent to which the guys at the top of that list are simply the quarterbacks that always play. But it is fair to say that Josh Allen is more turnover-prone, certainly than somebody like Mahomes, than Burrow, than some of these other great quarterbacks. But the thing with Josh Allen is he always managed to offset that by making as many big plays as anybody, and then adding some more on the ground with his legs. Now, the real difference, so Allen this year has the lowest turnover-worthy play rate of his career. It's 2.4%. It's the same as C.J. Stroud, who has 2 turnovers, right, or 2 interceptions. So his turnover-worthy play rate is actually down, but he has more interceptions than turnover-worthy plays this season. Now, so that the word luck, I think, gets into some trouble because there's nuance here. He's making some bad decisions with the ball, and they are costly. So it's not; those aren't luck; those are bad plays, right? But it is unlucky that like all of your turnover-worthy plays and then some result in turnovers. That is not the case for most quarterbacks in the NFL. But I'm wondering, actually, his turnover-worthy his proneness to turnovers hasn't changed this year. And if it's changed, it's actually gone in the right direction. The big difference is he's not offsetting those by being the most big play prone quarterback in the NFL anymore. That's the real difference. And I think you can debate how much of that is on Ken Dorsey, the offense generally, whatever, and how much of that is on this is the way defenses are forcing quarterbacks to play right now. If it's the latter, or if it's more the latter than the former, then Josh Allen isn't as good as he used to be because we've actually chopped his knee out on the one thing that he does better than anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, this was the adjustment that listen, remember 2021 when everybody started playing too high against the Chiefs? We were like, oh boy, they found a counter to the Chiefs. They're not letting Mahomes throw deep. That same year, the other thing that happened is Mahomes had ridiculously bad luck on some of the interceptions that he had, right? They were going through receivers' hands and whatever. So there was turnover issues, and they weren't as explosive. I mean, it was the same exact thing. We've had the same exact conversation about the 2021 Chiefs. Now, they made it through the rest of that year. They almost made it to the Super Bowl, but they did collapse in the second half. Mahomes had probably the worst half of football that he's ever played in the AFC Championship against the Bengals. And they didn't have an answer until the following year. It did take them a year.
Right.
And they said, okay, we're going to change our style of play. And they did it. It did feel like the Bills have started to morph that way. But every now and again, it's the rhythm thing. Allen has probably too much aggressiveness. When we talk about luck, you're right. Luck might not be the best term. But you get, to me, it's like just uneven consequences for your decisions. So I went back and looked through all of his interceptions. And some of his interceptions are literally just what people call 50-50 balls, which are really 20-80 balls, which became interceptions.
Right.
And it was like Stephon Diggs losing at the catch point against the Jags. It was other receivers just straight losing at the catch point. It was Max Crosby hitting his arm and the ball popped up for an interception. This is what we're talking about. Like the interception totals this year are inflated for Josh Allen. Over the totality of his career, if you want to say, hey, he's got a lot of turnovers, fine. But again, to your point, it's always offset by big plays, and it's fine.